Hi, and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and in this tutorial I will go through how to create a 3D scan of a film or cosplay prop. Whether if it's for VFX work or 3D printing, this should get you amazing results. So first of all, I'll just talk about my setup. It's a very basic setup. It's a light stand with a bendy clamp to hold the prop in a decent position, and just a nice clear day in the shade. So I've got plenty of light, but then also in the shade where I've not got any harsh lighting with big shadows or anything. I want to try and make it look as diffused lighting as possible. So also the camera that I'm using is a Canon 5D Mark II with a 50mm prime lens. But you can use any camera. You don't need a DSLR to create 3D scans. You can just use your phone. But you may be limited to whatever resolution your phone is and the texture quality if you're using your phone. Sometimes if you're using scans mostly for texture projection, a phone really won't cut it, but it'll give you a nice sort of scan and stuff. But try it out, you'll still get great results. So I've positioned this sword so I can get around it with ease. Having it tilted means I can get every angle I need without standing on chairs or ladders. And the hardest thing about photogrammetry is just taking the pictures. You need very sharp images with no or very little depth of field. I usually have my aperture at f8 or above with a very fast shutter speed. And I also want my ISO as low as possible to reduce any grain. But if it's too dark, you should try to raise your ISO first and possibly your shutter speed. If you have a tripod, you can adjust your shutter speed because then you have to worry about blur. So I would do my shutter speed if I have a tripod, but if I don't have a tripod, I'll raise my ISO. And I'll also shoot raw. This means if it's too dark and I don't really want to raise up my settings that high because it might just give me really bad results, it means I can shoot my images slightly underexposed so I can have clearer pictures, but then I can bring up the exposure in Photoshop or any other image editing software. So I'm just going to show you like the sort of pictures that I've taken. I've got Agisoft open at the moment, and you can see that my images are very, very clear and sharp. There's no depth of field, and you can see the amount of detail in each of these images. And let's just pick another one. And you can see that the light, let's pull that down. The lighting is, it's not perfect, but it's fairly diffused throughout. So what I'm going to do is just going to show you like the sort of final result of the scan so you can get an idea of the sort of photos that I took. Because you can see all the camera, instead of me drawing loads of pictures and arrows and stuff, this will probably give you a much better representation of how I took the photos and my sort of methodology behind it. So you can see I've got the sword there and it's tilted at an angle so I can get to the top and the bottom. And I've just done rotations and you can see the pictures here. I'm doing full 360s, trying to get as much overlap as possible. And I'm just working my way down the sword. And let's try and pick a rotation. So we can, if we look up at the top here, they kind of shrink as we go in, but you should just be able to see that. And we can see the handle. Then the next set of photos is slightly handle, the hilt and the blade. So I'm always overlapping my images. And you can see I've got the handle, the hilt and the blade. And it continues going down until they're all overlapping. So this is quite a key thing for you to do, is to make sure that they're always overlapping. Otherwise you might get misalignments. But for this, because it's a sword, it's quite thin. And I can't really feel very much of the frame. Because when you're scanning stuff, you want to make sure you're filling as much of the frame as possible. But with a sword, it's quite difficult because it's just long and thin. So I've actually probably taken a lot more than I've needed just to compensate for that. So I'm getting every tiny rotation. But yeah, and then just it's as simple as that. And like I say, the hardest thing, as you can almost see, that I've layered all these images as I've gone round, make sure they overlap. It's not the best rotation tool in Metashape, but you can sort of see what I've done here. And if I just hide my cameras, and you can see the quality that comes out of it. And this is the final scan. I've done some removed some of the geo from the clamp, but we'll fix that. If we zoom in, and we can see like the detail of the mesh, so we can go to a model solid. So you've got quite a few details in there, and the models come out really well, but mostly the texture is really good as well. So we're just going to start with this. So I'm going to open up a fresh Agisoft, and I'm going to go through the entire process. So if you've downloaded the images, you can just follow along, and yeah, we'll get going with it. So I'm going to be using Agisoft Metashape, as you saw in the previous one. So I've just opened it up, and if you've never used this before, it's a fairly simple piece of software. Most of the time you just go through workflow, then work your way through align photos, build dense cloud, build mesh, and build texture. Like I say, the hardest thing with photogrammetry and scanning is taking the images. So first of all, I'm just going to go up to here, where these little three boxes are, and the plus. And I'm just going to navigate to my JPEGs, because I've already converted these, because it'll be much lighter for you to download, and it'll be much faster to process. So I'm just going to select all of them, and that's loaded in 212 cameras, and we can open it up and we can see we've got 0 out of 212 aligned, and we can zoom in and see the sort of the quality of them. And because the object is stationary and we've gone around it, we can see that we've got a lot of stuff on the outside that we don't need, but we don't necessarily need to mask it, but we might do some masking later. There's my little sausage dog. Yeah, so we don't really need to do any masking for this. All we need to do is straight away just go to workflow and align photos. And for this I'm going to put it on the highest. It may take a little bit longer, but because I want to get the best alignment from here and everything else, it should do quite a nice alignment. And I'll just click OK. And this might take a while because it's going to go through all the images, find points that it can find in the images, then it's going to go through, start matching the points. So what I'm going to do is probably going to fast forward through this. Cool, so that's now finally done. If we just look around, we can straight away see our sort of camera alignment point cloud. And we can see, if we zoom out, it's kind of captured everything, but we don't want all of this. Where is, I think, one sec, I think that's hidden. Shadow region, there we go. So we've got all these points, and it's sort of calculated our regions from around here. So we want to adjust this. But as a rule of thumb, when you're doing scans and stuff like this, if your object doesn't kind of look like it's what it is on the first camera alignment, it's probably due to your photos. It should look exactly like it already. And the more it looks like it, the better. You're going to have a good time, basically. If your sort of prop doesn't look like what it's supposed to at the moment, probably means that your images are not too great, or if they're not overlapping enough. So for the main, like the first pass camera alignment, you want to make sure that you've got something like this. You can see what it is, because then you know it's going to work really well after that. Cool, so probably what you want to do is now save it. So I'm just going to file, save as. It's going to make a new folder. Scan. I'm just going to call it prop sword VO1 and save. Cool, and that should reset. So now what we need to do, because the next step is to build our dense cloud, but we don't want to do that yet. We want to make sure that when we're doing our dense cloud, we're doing it in the most optimized way. And to do this is to adjust our region. So this should be quite simple to do. Because it's a sword, we can sort of orientate our camera, our sort of viewport around until we're like sort of looking down it. Then I'll go up to the top here, and I'm going to select this box here, and I'm going to go rotate region. Just going to rotate this around until it's sort of square on. Then I'm going to move region, and the controls are not that great to be honest, but you should be able to get it fairly close. Then I'm going to resize. So now I'm going to try and get this region box as close to the alignment cloud as possible. Then I'm just going to select my cursor here to look around. And you want to make sure that it's completely in. We don't need it that long, so we can scale it again. And because of the way this is, you probably need to check it in a different view as well. So I think that's probably okay for the length. So I'm just going to look around and make sure that the sword is completely in the box. I know it's pretty much in, but I'm just going to make sure there's quite a lot of space in that box. So we can see, just looking around, that box is way within the region now. So when we do our dense point cloud, only what's in this box is going to be calculated, because we don't want to calculate all this, because this is what's a counter product of us not masking our sword out. We can mask it, but then you have to mask everyone. But if you've got shots like this, it's easier, because then you can just use your region to sort of mask out these areas that you don't need. So I'm going to go up to workflow. I'm going to select build dense cloud. So it's entirely up to you what you want to have this set at. Ultra high is probably not worth it for the time and for what we're doing. Low and lowest is kind of pointless for this, because you may as well mesh it as it is. So you kind of want to go for a medium or high. So I'm just going to go straight in with a high. It will take a little bit longer, but you'll get a much better mesh out of it. And ultra high is not worth it for something like this. So I want to go to advanced, and I think probably your filtering probably looks like this. I'm going to calculate point confidence as well, because we can use this if we have a lot of point spill, which I'm probably guessing that we're going to have some. I'll show you what point spill looks like afterwards once it's solved. And I'm going to make sure this is calculate point confidence, because this we can use our depth maps to sort of filter out any sort of loose points, sort of like masking it through the depth maps, and it's really useful. So I'm going to make sure that's on, and we can leave it on mild or moderate for depth filtering. Sometimes I leave it on. I probably only go between mild and moderate, so I'm just going to put it on moderate, and I'm going to select OK. So the dense point cloud usually takes quite a while, because it's got to do all the depth maps as well, and it's also got to do the point confidence filtering as well now. So the first thing it's do is going to generate the depth maps, then it's going to go through start building a high res dense point cloud. So I'm probably going to fast forward through this. So that's now finally done, and we can't really see anything because we need to go to the top here where it's got the more multiple squares, and select that. And this is now reveal our dense point cloud. And as you can see, it looks like a mesh, but if we zoom in, it's just points. So we've got a really good scan from this. So as you can see, there's a lot of trash around it as well. Bits where it's kind of around the edges and it's picked up stuff. And it happens. Sometimes you get scans and it doesn't do this, but sometimes you do. And that's why we did where was it? It was in dense point cloud. And we calculate point confidence. So what we can do, like, you can go through and use the selection tools and delete. That's one way of doing it. In fact, I'll just go through all the ways that you can do it, and it doesn't actually take that long to do. So you can do like the freeform and delete it that way, and just go really close along the edge. There are other ways you can select points and delete them. So there's not that many on the handle, so let's go to the tip. Let's double click on this image. This was because we didn't mask it, and we didn't really need to mask it. But for the sake of this, what we can do, we can right click on the image, have a magic wand. In fact, let's add, to select the wall, right click, add selection, right click, select it again, right click, add selection, right click, select that, and right click, add selection. So now we've made a really rough mask around the edge. So if we go to our mask, we can see that we've now got a mask here. We're not so worried about the edges because we only want it around the sword. And obviously you could do this for every single one, but I don't want to do that for 212 cameras. So what we can do, we've made a mask there, and we can go Tools, Dense Cloud, and select Points by Mask. If we scroll all the way down to our mask, and we can select OK. So now it's going to select everything in that mask, and we can delete it. So it's not really done all of it. It's done quite a good job. It's only done the areas that's in the mask. So we could do more masks and do it that way. Or we can go to our Tools, Dense Cloud, and Filter by Confidence. So at the moment it's at 0 to 225. And if we select OK, it does nothing. In fact, actually, let's save this before we make any drastic changes. I'm just going to save it as VO2. Cool, so we've deleted some of them, and you can go through and do the mask method. But I'm going to show you the point confidence method now. So Dense Cloud, Filter by Confidence. And you don't need a lot of values in here, so I'm actually going to start with 5. So if I actually do 10, let's do 10. And now that's actually done not too bad job, actually. It's done better than I thought it did. So now it's filtered all the sort of loose stuff off. But if we look around, we can double check that it's not taking any bits. It may have. See, it's kind of taken some bits in here. So if we go to Tools, Dense Cloud, and Filter by Confidence, and let's lower this down to, let's say, 6. Now we've brought that back. We've still got some bits on the edge, but it's very clean. And we've obviously got this on here, which we don't even really need to do anything. We can just use our selection and delete it that way. And for these tiny little bits, you can either go into, let's see if we can find another bit to mask. We might be able to get the last bit by using the magic wand and masking. So just add selection. Just using my magic wand to mask all this edges out. So you can see how this has saved us. So at the start, we could have masked all these out, and we'd probably still be masking it now. So you can see how this has probably saved us quite a lot of time. So it's 4241. So we go Tools, Dense Cloud, Filter Points by Mask. If we go down to that, what was it, 4241. Select OK. And if we delete that, that looks like that might have deleted. Oh no, it's done. Should be okay. Looks like it might have deleted quite a bit, but it's at the point, so it should be fine. So we can do, let's do this bit up here as well. So if we can find, so where are we? Right at this. So if we select there, we should still have our magic wand selected. No, we don't. So select magic wand, add selection. You can see actually how it's probably taken a bit too much off. But let's go and have a look. So that's 4165. And we can delete that. And now you can see we've got a nice mesh, well, a point cloud even. And we just need to get rid of this clamp. So what we can do is just sort of level this out. And I'm gonna select my rectangle selection. I just want to try and get this as close to this as possible. Without selecting too much, and I can delete that now. Then I can delete the rest. Now I want to do the same for this part. So I'm just going to orientate around so I can get a nice flat selection. I'm going to select my marquee tool. I just want to try and get rid of these sort of without going past this edge, so I'm not digging into the removing stuff that's that we want to keep. So I'll just look over at the top and we can see we've got bits here. So we are going to be left with a hole here, but we'll fix this. So don't worry about that. It's easier to fix than to leave it in. Well, it's easier to sort of fix it here. Then we can look around and we just maybe tidy up some of these loose points. Have a look in here. Sometimes all the filtering won't quite get to all those tiny little corners, so it's worth taking the time to sort of have a little look around, and because we've done most of the hard work, so you really want to spend the time sort of cleaning it up as much as possible, because it will only just mean that you'll get a better model. And it will save you a lot of time remodeling it. Cool, so I'm pretty happy with that. That's turned out really well. So that's just our point cloud. This is not a mesh, so we can look in and just see on the point, the vertex color, it's really nice and detailed just from points. So if we zoom in, we can just see it's not mesh, it's just points. So what we can do is now save it. So I'm going to save it again. Let's go VO3. then our next step is to mesh it. Oh, why does that come back? Okay, so I guess the filter by confidence doesn't save, so I just have to do it again, so it's fine. It's deleted all the other ones. So now all we need to do is mesh it. Cool, so we've pretty much cleaned up our model and, well, our point cloud that is. And our next thing would be to mesh it. But because when we filter the by confidence, so we did the filter by confidence, we didn't actually get rid of them. We just used it so we could see. So if we built our mesh now, it will still model all these. So we need to find out a way how we can delete this. So what we can do is we can see what the filter by confidence is. So let me just pull this down. And if we go up to this top part here, we can open this up and go to dense cloud confidence. And now we can sort of see what's happening here. We've got this, like, these two different colors, our RGB colors, and some cyan here. So this is kind of where it's figuring out from the depth maps, the sort of, like, it's like self-explanatory, like the confidence and the sort of what the mapping is. And we can sort of see all the red areas is very bad. And we've got this little graph here, which gives us a good indication of stuff, of numbers that we can sort of use to remove or add. So previously we did dense point cloud and filter by confidence, and we changed this to, what, I think 6, and it removed all the stuff. But if we now create the mesh, this will now all the points will still be there because we haven't actually physically deleted them. What we want to do is go to dense point cloud, filter by confidence, put this to 0, and let's have a little look around. Oh, let's bring it all back so we can see. And let's have a look at this little graph here on the left. So we want to get rid of all the 1, basically, which is the red. We want to get rid of all this red. Probably a fair bit of this green. Green is there's quite a lot of green here. So let's just go for something a little less than 5. So if we go to dense cloud, filter by confidence, but instead of changing the minimum, let's change the maximum. So what is left is, so the points that will be left will be the bad ones. So if 5 is in the green, we probably actually want to go maybe, let's see what 3 looks like. We've got quite a bit of yellow in here. Let's actually see what we'll be removing. Maybe let's go to filter by confidence again. Let's change that to 4. In fact, 2. See what that does. That's more of the yellowy red. And you can kind of see that we're kind of left with stuff that we don't want. So we can now select all this and just delete it. So now if we go to Tools, Dense Cloud, Filter by Confidence, change this back to 255. We can now see that we're left with all the blue and partially some of the green. So now let's do that again. Let's go to Tools, Dense Cloud, Filter by Confidence. And we did 2 before, so let's do 4 and see what we're left here. And you can see that gets rid of all of that geometry there. Gets rid of a lot of stuff here. think it should be okay because we've got quite a lot of... In fact, let's do it one less. Let's do it to 3. And let's select all those points and delete. So if we go to dense cloud, reset the filter, that should bring it all back. We've still got all this green here. Let's go to our dense cloud and see what we've got left. So we've still got quite a lot. So let's go all the way up to green. It's got the 4. In fact, I think previously we did 6, didn't we? And let's delete that. And just go to Tools, Dense Cloud, Reset Filter, and yes. You can now see we've got a pretty clean mesh. We've got some holes here, but the meshing will fix that. And now if we go to our dense cloud, we can see we've got a really clean mesh. We've got some sort of patches in the point cloud, but it doesn't matter because the meshing will fix that. So now we're ready to do the meshing, I think. We can just double check over it's not got anything weird. Cool. So let's go to workflow, build mesh, dense clouds, high, leave all this as standard, click OK. And this will probably take a while, so I'll fast forward through this. Cool, so that's now done. So if we now select our little pyramid, see nothing's changed because it's basically the mesh now and the vertex colors. So this is our mesh. Sort of the pyramid of the green and yellow is the model shaded, but it's just model with vertex color. So now if we just select the plain model solid, we can see now our model. You can see it's worked really well. It's obviously got these dodgy parts here, which we can fix quite easily, so don't worry about that. Yeah, so now our final step would be to create the textures. So now I'm going to go to workflow and build texture. So if we just go to Diffuse Map, and you've got an occlusion map, we probably will do one of those as well, because it's quite good to remove shadows. So we'll just do Diffuse Map first. Our source data will be images because they're going to come from the projection of the images. The mapping mode will just be generic. Blending mode, and we'll leave as mosaic. Texture size, count, it's up to you. In reality, it doesn't need to be 8K. It can be 4K, 2K, 1K, 500 pixels because we're going to end up reprojecting it anyway onto a better mesh. So don't worry about this. I'm going to still leave it as 8K because I want to see how nice it looks. And I'm going to leave those because I don't always like how they make things. They sometimes over the holes make something a little bit blurry, but I don't want that. So I'm just going to select OK. This is going to start building the textures and projecting them. So this might take a while, so I'll probably fast forward through this. Cool, so that's now done. So if we go to our pyramid again, and we go to model textured. Might take a little bit of time, but now you see that's come in. And now that's our textured model. So we can look in and we can see we got some really nice detail here. Like, this is going to hold out, like, even if you have it there, it still looks pretty good for that distance. It's very unlikely that you're going to be rendering something that close to screen unless you're doing super close-ups. But yeah, we're pretty much done. All we now need to do is export this, and because we don't want to keep it as because if we go model wireframe, we can see that this is a super high-res mesh, and we ideally want to remodel this, then reproject our textures. So it's a much cleaner model. So let's go back to our textured. So we're pretty much finished with this now. All we need to do now is export it and export the textures. Then we'll bring it into Maya. Then we'll completely remodel this and we'll bring in the textures and we'll see what it looks like when we render it. So I'm just going to go File, Export, and Export Model. And I'm just going to make a new folder called Exports, just so I don't get stuff mixed up. Just got Prop Sword VO1 and save. I've still got the old one now. Just got Prop Sword, and I'm just going to leave it as a JPEG now because I don't need a TIFF or an EXR because it's all going to be done on the remodel anyway. So I'm just going to select OK, and now that's going to start exporting it out. So yeah, we're pretty much done. Yeah, but you don't have to bring it into Maya. You bring it into any modeling software you want. I'm just going to bring it into Maya because it's just my go-to 3D software, and generally that's pretty much what all VFX companies use. So I know there's lots of software out there, but Maya is a good one to learn. But yeah, we're pretty much done. So our next step is just to take this into any 3D software and remodel it. Then we'll prep it for reprojecting. So if you've enjoyed this tutorial, hit that like button and subscribe for more like this.